Our next guest is Douglas Tyrell. He's been on as well before. He is a producer and performer of the one-man show called The American Soldier, a play that reveals American soldiers' struggles when they return from war and honors them and their families and their immense sacrifices. He'll be performing his show up here in Bedford, New York on March 3rd. And there's going to be a fundraiser associated with that for veteran suicide and how they can help with equine therapy. With that, Doug, how are you doing, my friend?
Hey, nice to talk to you again, Brett.
It sounds great. Yeah, no, thanks for being here. Listen, I know you've been super busy since we last talked, I think about 6 months ago. Tell us what's going on with American Soldier.
Well, still performing and sharing the stories across the country. I mean, last year, 2021, I hit 5 or 6 cities. And this year will be Bedford's the first show of this year. And then after Bedford, I go to Tracy, California, and then Champaign, Illinois, Duna, Illinois, potentially Wisconsin and Michigan.
And it's at the Bedford Playhouse, I'm assuming, up in Bedford, right?
Yeah, it's at Bedford Playhouse, and it's a great group. And kind of picking back off your last guest, that they raise money, they help vets with equine therapy, and a lot of times, something that I've learned in my Q&As after the show. After the show, we always do a Q&A, and in many ways, the play becomes a moderator for a lot of the vets, allows them to open up and share their stories. And some of the things that vets have shared with me over the years that I've kind of picked up off of them is, sometimes talking to a therapy works for a certain vet, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes equine therapy works for a vet, sometimes it doesn't. Canine, there's many forms of a therapy for a vet to look out to.
Racing cars, right.
Yeah, and just, the things a lot of the guys and girls have shared with me is when they feel the urge, they want to give up, that you want to fight that. You want to fight that urge to give up and just find another form of therapy and find a group. A lot of vets have shared with me that, you've got to look for groups that you fit with, groups. There's a lot of, obviously groups that help vets transition out of the military and come back and how to deal with PTS, and find a group that kind of fits you and fits your sensibilities well and that you're into. Maybe they go fishing, maybe they go hunting, maybe they do a lot of running or exercise. It's just a really, just because one form of looking for help doesn't work doesn't mean that help doesn't work. You've got to keep fighting on. And that's what I've learned. And so that's what we're doing. So we're raising money for up in Bedford on March 3rd. And it's a really great group. I mean, they do amazing stuff. And they're really, I don't know if anybody knows about equine therapy. I mean, they really get that. They really help them a lot with transitioning out of the military and dealing with PTS. No drugs or anything. It's just basically talking to a horse.
Yeah, well, horses are one of those animals that has a symbiosis with humans because of the way they've been domesticated. And, they are, such a large animal, but they're also one that is kind of looking to the human for, if you will, like what they're going to do. So it's a very unique thing. Yeah,
no, it really is. They, I did the show. I've been there twice already, and it's been they're big fans of the play and how it allows people to open up and as you know, and as I've shared with you before and on my past interviews, the play is a voice for veterans. The script itself is based on their words, on their own words, and so that's find it really they're able to connect with it. But when I was there in 2018. They allowed me to experience equine therapy, and it is a complete trip. We all have our scars from life, growing up, and they put me there with this huge horse. I mean, and that's the thing about horses, when you get up close to a horse, they're intimidating because they're so powerful, and you're just kind of, if it wants to push you around, it has no problem. And this was an ex-Olympic horse that couldn't, wasn't able to compete because of some injuries. So they used it as a therapy horse. And I just sat there and talked to him about my issues growing up and what I had. And man, it's amazing how the horse, it starts following you around. It nubs you with your, with its nose. And then it mimics the way you walk. And then it just, you can't help but feel safe with it. You just want to tell it all your intimate stories. And what's really powerful.
Well, Mr. Ed could talk back, so You never know. I'm kidding. I'm
Right.
kidding.
But the
I'm
thing
kidding.
is, it's not going to judge you, and that's the powerful thing. No matter what you say, it's not going to give you a dirty look. It's not going to, it's not going to be like, oh, can't believe you did that. Well, really, it's your fault. So you feel safe with it, and it's amazing. And I'm sure, some vets, they say the same thing about canines. I mean, I have a dog. Animals are amazing, and I think it's a form of therapy that I think some of the struggles they have is that the VA doesn't really fund these forms of therapy, and which is a shame because they're really successful and they're really powerful.
They are actually, real quick, there actually was just released an equine therapy grant nationally. So you should have, you should have Endeavor Therapeutic reach out to me. I'll at least send it to them.
Okay.
They released two. One was for adaptive sports, which Racing for Heroes is going to be putting in for a race car that's modified for hand controls. But they have the other grant is specific to equine therapy. So yeah, please, please.
I'll connect you.
Yeah, please reach out. That'd be awesome. And where is Endeavor Therapeutic out of?
They're on 556 Croton Lake Road.
Okay.
Croton Lake Road. But the show is at the historic hall on March 3rd, and it's an amazing hall. It's an old, revolutionary hall that they restored, and they do, all kinds of special events there. So it's a really special venue. It feels like you're in some revolutionary protest, especially when it's filled. And when I do the revolutionary monologue, it really resonates in there because, the building has been around for almost 250 years, and they've got right next to it, they've got a cemetery, and some of the cemetery has actually Revolutionary soldiers.
Of course, yeah. So it's such an old city,
really
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, because your show runs the gamut all the way from Revolutionary War to current time, right?
Yeah, it goes from everywhere. It's basically Revolution all the way up through the current wars or the recent wars, Afghanistan and Iraq.
No, and I think it's amazing. I tend to read memoirs of World War I veterans. I always find them fascinating. And when you read that stuff, I found the last year. I'll make it quick, but there was a New Rochelle veteran who was a accomplished combat pilot in World War I, ended up serving again in World War II. But I found his great grandson, and they have his letters back to his mom, her great great grandmother, and was basically complaining about all the same stuff they complain about today, but instead of talking about modern fighter jets, he was talking about SPAD fighters from World War II. Like the engines don't work, and they have a hard time maintaining.
I mean, people always ask me after the show, did you find any common themes between when you're doing your research? And there are a lot of common themes. But,
food, gear.
Well, the main one, all of them complained about was marching. I mean, from the Revolution, Civil War, because marching was used as a form of punishment, as a form of discipline, as a form of control, and they all talked. It was really funny. I mean, they all talked about brotherhood. Brotherhood was one of the themes that really resonated, even from the Revolutionary. From the Minutemen. Ebenezer Fox and Joseph Plum talked about wanting to go back and fight for the people they're brothers in arms.
Absolutely.
And that was very true, obviously, in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah, and I think that's important, right? Because when you have military veterans who serve alongside each other, those bonds are formed in a common experience, which is why those bonds are so strong. I mean, you see it in like families, right? And and that's why the people I served with in the military. I mean, I would tell you that some of them I have a more intimate and personal relationship than even my brother.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just interviewed Diana Vasquez on my podcast. She was a vet that I met in Granbury, Texas, and she's a Purple Heart recipient and an amazing woman, and very unbelievable woman. And as she shared to me, the bonds that she made with her buddies over there in Iraq and Afghanistan. To this day, she'll never ever be able to recreate that. And that's something I hear all the time. The people who you serve with and who have your back, they're the closest people that you'll ever be connected to. Even more than your partner and your spouse.
Yeah, I hear you.
because
Hey, Doug, we are getting it literally to the last 30 seconds of show. If someone
Sure.
wants to go check your stuff out, where do they go?
So you can go to my website, www.theamericansoldiersoloshow.com, if you want to stay connected with future dates. And there you also find the Bedford show, which is on March 3rd. And it starts at 6 o'clock. It's going to be a big gala. They're going to have food. They're going to have reception. It's going to be a big thing. And all the money goes to help vets and raise money for equine therapy. So March 3rd, Bedford, New York, starting at 6 p.m. The curtain opens at 7 p.m. for my show. So
That's awesome.
check it out.
That's awesome.
That'd be great. I really appreciate you letting me share it.
No, and listen, and we're so looking forward to that. And we'll have you check in a few months when you're on the road. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, Douglas Tyrell. Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. We'll see you next week right here at WVOX. Enjoy the real Doug Lane. Take us out.